So we are now rolling. Okay, welcome to another show of Garage Talks in the home of Deb Conley in South Boulder. Beautiful view of Chautauqua. What a great location you have here. You must love getting out and run from the front door, huh?
It is. It's beautiful. I love it here. I mean, I have to say, it's heaven. It truly is.
Oh, I can imagine. Do you run up in El Dorado quite a bit too?
I have, but it's. I have to, and I tell people, well, actually, sometimes I drive a mile from the house to start running because it's always going to start on a hill back here. So it's not like always out the door running, but pretty close.
Well, let's tell folks why we're talking, I guess, and we'll get into all the other stuff. But you were recently inducted into the Colorado Running Hall of Fame. We went to high school together, which is pretty crazy. And here we are talking. We haven't seen each other much since high school. We did see each other a few years ago for one of your guided runs at the Cherry Creek Sneak.
Yes.
And we'll talk about that. But tell us about how excited you are to be in the Colorado Running Hall of Fame and what does it mean?
Oh my gosh. I was very excited. I've actually in the past nominated other people to be considered. So, when I got notified that I was selected, it didn't really hit me because my friend Mike Sandrock sent me the email. And I actually misread it. I thought the person that I had nominated got in. Oh. And that's how I was being And so I read it. I read it again and it said, no, that I had been selected, and it was like just, I was really taken back.
So you were totally surprised?
Yes, totally surprised. Yes.
Wow. So let's tell people. I'm curious why you think you were selected.
Well, I've made a difference in the running community for visually impaired runners. I can say it's not that I had run fast times as a runner, because I've certainly ran fast, but I was not an Olympic qualifier.
Right.
But for developing the sport for visually impaired athletes in track and field.
For a long time.
For a long time, many years actually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we were talking before we started this, and I just presumed that you were on the cross-country team at Weaver's High School where we went to school, and I guess I was wrong because you were working for your family and making ends meet and helping at home sort of thing, and then you got to CU, and you started running before you went to CU and just loved running, I guess, and went out for the CU cross-country team. Is that right?
That's correct. I had met a few of the women that were running for CU that were on full scholarships. And this one woman named Cecilia Robinson, she was a Texas state champion. And she had been training with Francie LaRue Smith. I mean, if you know who running is, that Francie LaRue Smith was really good at that time.
Yeah.
And Cecilia was from a real small town, and she said, you know, come on out for the team, you know. Here she was running already 90 miles a week, and she was coming in to see you running 36-minute 10Ks very easily.
Yeah, okay.
She's like, you know, and I really didn't know any better, actually, you know. And
Were you running in high school just for fun, like on your off time? Was that your thing to go run?
No.
No.
I did not start running until the summer after high school.
Literally?
Literally. And I started running because I met a boy who ran. Now, he wasn't like a fast runner, but he would like run 3 miles.
And you would just tag along?
And I thought, well, I would like to come.
Yeah.
And my goal really was to be able to run 3 miles without stopping.
Okay.
But I had a talent, and it made me feel good. I have to say that running really changed the way I looked at myself or felt about myself, the way academics or anything else that I was doing in my life hadn't done. And so it was for the first time that I had some self-confidence or getting self-confidence. I was attracted to it.
So when does the cross country season hit in college? Fall?
Fall.
Did you start on the cross country team that first fall?
I did.
Really? Wait a minute, time out.
I did.
Come on, you just started running in August, and next thing you know, you walk on to a very good cross country program. Or was it where was the cross country program at CU at the point? Because they're obviously nationally known now.
They're nationally known now. Okay, the first year that I was at CU, it was actually Gordon Fox's last year as coach, and they didn't have a track. CU did not have a track at the time.
No track.
No track. So they had a progressive program for the women's side in distance running, but not much of a track program. So it was easier. It was easier at that time to become a walk-on.
Huh.
Although you still had to prove yourself.
Sure.
So that was probably my first in, was that they didn't have a good track program. You know, they had a good cross-country program, and they were starting to build it. And then Jerry Quiller came, and that really started changing things around. And Jerry Quiller was one of the best coach. He gave me an opportunity, you know.
And there were some other Wheat Ridge folks there for the Reese family.
The Reese family.
We know the
Yes.
Reeses. Not everybody watching this does, but they had an amazing family of runners that were, they were all a little older than us. So
They were all a little. Sam was older than us, and Danny's a year older.
Right.
Dave did not go to CU. They have all of their family members are talented, you know.
So you have a little bit of a familiarity maybe with some folks anyway, or at least something in common.
Danny was like, I knew Danny because Danny was like, everybody knew Danny. He was really good, you know.
Right. So, okay, so you walk onto the CU cross country team right out of the gate, first thing in college. Most kids are trying to find their dorm room and partying probably too much or whatever. Tell me what it's like when you told your family that you are on the CU cross country team, and they probably were surprised, I'm guessing.
That's a really good question. I didn't have a lot of support from my family for what I was doing at college, so they were pretty nonchalant about it. In fact, none of my family ever saw me race.
Really?
At a cross-country race while I was at CU. I think I had one family member come to one indoor track meet.
So you were just on your own doing your thing?
I was on my own.
So you did track as well as cross-country?
Yes, I did 5,000, 10,000.
Okay.
On the outdoor track.
Right.
And then in the indoor, if they had a 3,000.
What a neat, to go from, I know where you lived, where we grew up, I grew up nearby obviously, and to kind of just move up the road a little bit and really flourish in a whole new way must have felt amazingly empowering.
It was. And for the people that know me, and I'm not sure if you remember, Bill, but I have a twin sister.
Yeah.
So when I came to CU, it was the first time that I could be seen as myself and not as the twins.
Right.
So running allowed me to create myself as an individual that I had never experienced before.
Where did she end up going to school?
She went to Metro.
Okay.
Yeah.
Are you guys close? Do you talk?
I have not seen my sister in 13 years.
Oh, really? Oh,
yeah.
That's too bad.
Yeah.
Well, it is what it is, I
guess. Yeah, it is. Yeah.
So talk about your college career. So you walk on as a freshman. You obviously continue to run. Talk about their career and what it was like to be a collegiate athlete.
For me, it was wonderful because of the people that I got to meet, the supportive atmosphere, and it was just really exciting to actually grow as an athlete. And to see that and be a part of a program that was growing at the time. Because I hadn't had the background of running or sports prior to coming into a program, the Division I program, I within a year I had a stress fracture, so that took me out for a bit. But it was all a learning experience. I could not handle the mileage that some of the other girls were putting in because I just didn't have the foundation in my ligaments to handle that type of high mileage.
Did you feel pressure from the team to do more mileage at all, or were you able to stay comfortable with what you were trying to do? I mean, obviously you had a stress fracture, so.
I was able to stay comfortable. There was never, when I was going to CU, never pressure to do more mileage. We always had like some specific target workouts when we were running for Jerry Quiller, especially in cross country season. And at the time, like one of our target workouts during the week was 5 times 1,000s. And he would take us out near the Boulder Reservoir, and we would run 5 times 1,000 meters. And basically he chose the traveling team based on who had the best times. So it was a very equal opportunity.
Well, you said when we were chatting before we started that when you had that injury, you learned about swimming. And talk about how that was a little bit of a T in the road for you, and you took another avenue a little bit during college with triathlon.
Yes. Obviously, when you have a stress fracture, there's no running.
Yeah.
So in order to stay fit, they said, we'll get in a pool. And I didn't know how to swim. So I met friends who introduced me to Jane Scott. And he said, Jane Scott is the best coach. Go to Jane Scott's workouts. She'll teach you how to swim. So I did that, and within about a year and a half of training, I was becoming pretty decent for a triathlete swimmer. I could swim 24 minutes for 16:50.
Okay, a mile in 24 minutes, basically.
Now that's not super fast if you're a swimmer, but it's pretty fast for a woman triathlete.
Yeah.
I mean, once you add the other
It's going to keep you competitive.
It'll keep me competitive.
Yeah.
And I could power through, basically, because I had the engine from running, and I probably have some genetic components.
So how did you get introduced to the bike? And when did the thought of a triathlon really happen?
That didn't happen. That was also as a result of a boy. Who's
I sense a theme here, just kidding.
He was doing triathlons and said, well, why don't you try this? This is a new sport. And he was actually really good friend, had gone to school with Mark Allen.
Okay.
They had gone to, so I thought, I'll try that out. Now, I have to tell you, I didn't like biking.
Yeah.
But I could do it well enough to hold my own.
Okay.
Now, if you put me against another cyclist, a true cyclist, I'm going to get smashed. But
you had success with triathlon, too.
I did.
Yeah.
I was the fastest female at CU when I went there. And we, as a team, we went to the Collegiate National Triathlon Championships. And the first year was in Champaign, Illinois, and the females, we took second as a national team. The following year was in Florida, and we were national champions.
How did you do?
Both times I was fourth individual.
Wow, that's amazing.
So,
I mean, just off the podium probably was a little frustrating, but...
Yeah, that was a little frustrating. Yeah. But, hey, I got to travel, and I would have never been able to do that. I mean, I could have never imagined that. And the whole experience was
Have you done triathlons much since?
No, I did quite a bit after that, but those were in the 80s.
Mm-hmm.
And triathlons as an Olympic sport hadn't really become, they hadn't really met that as a sport yet. So at the time that I was doing triathlons, and then making the jump into professional triathlons, there wasn't any Olympic movement to it. It was more just professional. And I really I didn't have the funds to continue that route, because once you going to say I want to race professionally, you really have to put a lot of money into the bikes,
Right.
and wetsuits and traveling expenses, and it's actually expensive.
It is.
It's an expensive sport, and where I wanted to be as an athlete, I couldn't be there because I didn't have the financial means, and I felt like I've done what I could do, given my limits. I couldn't afford, a several $1,000 bike.
So did you run professionally then?
I didn't run professionally.
Okay.
I ran on teams. I still improved after college. And my goal was to qualify for the Olympic trial marathons. So I was on that track.
Okay.
The fastest I ran a 10-mile was 60 minutes, 3 seconds at the Broad Street 10-mile in Philadelphia. And I could run 6-minute pace pretty consistently up to 18 miles. So I was on that path.
Yeah.
It was really very easily for me to dial into that 6-minute pace. Now, at that time, that would have been getting you into the trials. Of course, you're not going to make the team at that time, and I knew that wasn't going to be an option.
Yeah.
But that was really my goal, and I was on that pace, and then I decided to have a baby. And my delivery was really hard after that, so I didn't run for 2 years after I had my child. So that really ended any possibility of my dreams of making to the Olympic trials.
Gotcha. So let's dive into your visually impaired work, and how did that get on your radar screen, and why?
I have to tell you, the first time it came on my radar screen was while I was at CU. I met a male who was blind, and I actually guided for him a couple of times. So that was my first introduction, but I didn't really become reintroduced to it until the early 2000s, when I answered an ad that they were specifically looking for a female to guide a blind athlete for a race in Denver. That was a female only race.
Okay.
And I had kind of thought I really wanted to start enjoying my sport again and to try to do something else. So I answered that. Now then they called and they said, okay, well, you're selected to do this. So I'm like, okay. Not having any experience really, except the few times I had guided someone in college.
Yeah.
I met my first athlete, Luann Burke, and we ran an 8K in Denver.
Okay.
And she was my first blind athlete, really guiding. Now, what I didn't know prior is that she did have a history of an athletic background. She was a downhill skier.
Oh. Okay.
And she had won world medals as a blind downhill skier. So, Luann has no fear of anything. And she's a few years older than me, and she's only 5 foot. She's very, really small. And she's very ambitious. She wanted to get right on the starting line. You know, this was a couple thousand people race.
Yeah.
And I said, we're on the starting line. Do you really... I hadn't run with her. I had no idea what she could do.
Huh.
And she goes, no, I'm ready. I'm ready. And I'm like, okay. Well, the gun goes off, and Luann takes off like it's a half mile.
Tethered to you.
Tethered to me. And she takes off. She's running. We're running under 6-minute pace. And I wasn't prepared for that. You know, I was like, the first quarter mile, when we were out, I said, well, Luann, we're in the top 7. That's like really fast right now. And then that half mile, I said, we're like in the top 5. And I was like kind of getting nervous because I didn't know if I could keep this. I was not planning to run sub 6-minute pace.
And did they tell you that this person was going to be sort of this pace?
No.
Really?
No, they didn't tell me. Well, of course, Luann died. I mean, Luann like couldn't make that pace, so she slowed down quite a bit.
Okay.
And she ended up running like 8-minute miles, average.
So she really slowed down.
She really slowed down.
Yeah.
But I met with her afterwards, and I said, "You've got talent. I mean, you've got some natural speed."
Yeah.
I said, "I think I can help you train."
Okay.
And I don't know if she took me seriously the first time, but I said, I'll guide you. I said, I think you've got talent.
Yeah.
Well, she did have talent. And so that was my first athlete.
How many times did you end up guiding her?
Many years.
Like, how many races do you think you've guided people in? Over 100?
Over 100.
Over
100. And Luann, I actually ended up, I ended up guiding her, training her for several years, like 4 times a week.
Have you ever been in a situation to be with somebody that could be the Paralympics?
Well, Luann could have. She had the possibility at the time to make it into the 1500 B standard. I have guided with Amelia Dickinson.
Yeah. That's who I guided.
Yes.
Yeah.
I was going to ask you. I couldn't remember who I guided.
Yeah.
No, I guided Amelia for a long time.
Okay.
And so Amelia would be that person.
Was she a Paralympic caliber?
Yes.
Okay. Now you tell me.
Yes. Yes.
I would
Well,
be super nervous.
Yeah. She's the current. She holds the current marathon. Fastest marathon time for a female blind and a 5K.
Okay.
Amelia, yes, was on par for the Paralympics. She did not go.
Okay.
She ended up running 2 marathons within 6 weeks, which I don't recommend anyone to do.
Yeah.
But she wanted to run a certain race. That's a pretty big race. And she did that. And she ran fantastic. But to run 2 marathons within 6 weeks, and they were within 1 minute of each other, of pretty good times. She sustained an injury.
Yeah. So is there a kind of a cause that how did you become so attached to the VI community? And is there something else in your family? Is there some personal story there that really got you excited about working with this group of people?
It was mainly meeting Luann, and then the more other blind athletes that I began to meet. And what I was seeing on the USA side, as far as athlete development for visually impaired athletes, we really weren't doing enough, I thought. And I had success with visually impaired athletes that I personally was guiding and training. I was developing some really good athletes that I felt like I probably have a knack for it. And I did have certain guiding techniques. I developed tethers and relationships with the athletes. And I saw that there was a gap as far as visual impairments and running, what was available. And when I started developing higher performing athletes, the limit with that visually impaired athlete is with the guide.
All right.
So if you don't have a fast guide, you can only run as fast as your guide.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's how I came up with the idea that I want to develop guides that are high performing guides that can train athletes and to develop the sport.
Okay. Interesting. So you kind of, it was very organic how this developed.
Very organic.
It wasn't you having this, a vision issue yourself or a family that had, it was just sort of, you found your niche.
I found my niche.
Yeah.
And I found that that there was not much advocacy going on for visually impaired runners. Now, there had been many visually impaired runners within our area, within Colorado, previous to me getting involved, but they were sporadic.
Mm-hmm.
And I felt like visual impairment is one of the highest disabilities that we have in the world. And I felt like you meet a lot of visually impaired people, and a lot of them are not doing athletics because they're afraid or they've been told you can't do it, it's not safe.
Mm-hmm.
I really wanted to change that for a lot of people, to give them the opportunity to experience what I experienced as far as a personal growth with athletics.
So would that be kind of the parallel to how your experience of going to CU, of really leaving a whole different kind of lifestyle, changing your life through athletics and sports, and now giving that ability to somebody that's visually impaired?
Yeah, that was exactly it. Is that what I learned from my experience at CU and meeting other athletes at CU that, came from a family that supported them, or they came through high school athletics, and they had support. There's more opportunities. I wanted to, Jerry Quiller gave me an opportunity that really changed my life. I mean, not any.
By offering you the opportunity to walk on.
By offering that, yeah.
Yeah.
And sure, come ahead and do the workouts.
Yeah.
He didn't say no, you can't come because we didn't recruit you.
Right.
Now some coaches will do that.
Absolutely.
And it changed my life. Mm. And when I started to seeing how the lives of athletes that were changing, that I was guiding, I just wanted to expand that opportunity for more people. And so that's when I started Lending Sight. And I started providing funds to take visually impaired athletes to races and to provide them training equipment.
Oh. So you do a scholarship sort of program. How many athletes Lending Sites is an organization? Is that a business?
Well, it started out as an organization, okay, and I became a USABA, which is United States Blind Athletes Organizational Club. So I became governed under USABA, and then I became recognized actually on USATF as when I started bringing Paralympics to para-track meets.
Okay.
Lending Sight right now has changed into more just a company for guiding products.
Like the tethers.
The tethers, right.
Do you guys get into any sort of wheel-assisted things for like a triathlon, for instance?
I have tethers for swimming for a visually impaired. And I have tethers for they call it towing. Now, towing is not actually legally a rule that you can't when I talk about towing, I mean like putting a belt around yourself, putting a belt around another athlete, blind athlete, and having a tether in between them.
Yeah.
You can't do that in races that are with USATF or World Para-Athletics.
Gotcha.
Now you can do that if the race director at your local race says it's possible to do that.
Sure.
That's fine, but if you're competing at an event that's going to be recorded for a specific time, you have to follow those guidelines.
So just for our listeners' sake here, explain a good tether. What makes a tether better than another one?
Okay. Well, when I started making tether, I talked to Luann. Luann would come to me and she didn't have a tether. And I said, this is crazy. So we would use shoestrings, and that really doesn't give you a whole lot of give when you're telling someone, like, you know, you need to turn or hitting a turn. So I said, we should probably develop some tethers. Now, she thought it was a ludicrous idea. But it actually turned out to be, it's exactly what people needed, was a tethering device. And the first ones that I created were simple. They're just nylon. And I thought I wanted to keep them inexpensive, so they're very inexpensive.
Like a rope? Nylon rope, you mean?
I can get one for you.
Yeah. Okay, wow, look at all
Yeah.
that. Okay.
So this is like your first basic tether.
Okay.
And this is just, it's nylon and it's manufactured, it's sewn, so, you know,
Pretty
very
simple.
simple, very
Yeah.
simple.
Right.
This is what I used with Luann when we ran. She was the first visually impaired athlete to run a USATF cross-country championship meet, and I ran with her in this, and she finished mid-pack.
Okay.
Which, you know, if you're going to a nationals in a race, everyone's good.
Sure.
Everyone's good. So finishing mid-pack is pretty good, especially if you're blind.
Right.
A lot of guides asked for tethers that had some give into them because a lot of people were feeling the strain on their backs. Guides were. So then I developed these tethers, and these have tubing.
Like a surgical tubing almost?
Yeah, it's heavy duty surgical tubing, and a lot of people prefer this type of tether actually, because there's some give.
Sure.
And I developed this into different lengths.
And do you sell those then or offer them as part of?
And yes, now these are my designs, and I've got some other tethers, but these are now what the World Para Athletics came up with specifications because tethers, there were no specifications when you come to a world event or a Paralympic event.
Gotcha.
Okay. Some people were tethering people waist to waist.
Okay.
Now you can give other athletes an advantage. And
it's like tether doping, right?
exactly. And yes, it's like certain visual classifications to ensure that everyone is 0%, 0% light, have to wear blinds.
Oh, is that right?
Yes, shades, and they are inspected. Okay.
Wow.
To make sure there is no blind athlete that has an advantage over another blind athlete.
Gotcha. I didn't know that.
Yes.
Because isn't there classifications?
There's 3 classifications.
Okay.
T11, T12, T13.
Based on the type of visual impairment they have.
Correct.
Yeah.
Now, and a T13 is someone that doesn't need a guide, technically, but is legally blind. And, you know, we had a very famous woman, American, I think it's Paula Runyon. And I apologize if I got her name wrong. But she made our Olympic team as a blind athlete, and she was very fast in the 5,000, 3,000.
But she made the team as a able-bodied?
As an able-bodied.
Wow.
She also ran marathons, and they would let her have a bike next to her to tell her.
Okay. So I've learned a little bit through triathlon through our mutual friend Michael Stone, who has, I forget the name of his condition, where he can see peripherally.
He has RP.
And that's a fairly common among the visually impaired world, I think.
It is.
And what I learned, I think, tell me if I'm wrong, that it's a really small percentage of visually impaired athletes who have been blind their whole life and have zero light.
That's correct.
It's more of a degenerative sort of thing. That's the way it is?
That's true for RP. RP generally it's degenerative, and usually by your mid-40s you are blind.
Yeah.
In entering your 50s can be in total darkness for RP. Let me get back to the tethers.
I'm sorry.
Okay, because certain tethers can give advantage to athletes, okay? That's why towing is not allowed.
Right, sure.
Because if you have a strong front person, you can actually pull a blind person. I did that. I have towed a blind person to a PR, okay? Now, I was like, technically, I was in front of him. You can't do that. You have to be side by side. Okay?
I mean, when I run with the dog pulls me and gives me a little advantage.
Yeah. You can't do that if you're going to try to compete visually impaired against visually impaired. You want them to have an equal playing field.
Yes.
Okay, so World Para-Athletics recently came out with new guidelines for tethers. This is now meet the guidelines for a road tether, and this is a track tether. And I now have these available. And
what's the difference?
50 millimeters, 30 millimeters.
Other than that?
Other than that. And they have to be very specific guidelines. A minimum 10 centimeters.
Okay.
This little, and I'll give you this figure. There's the figure. It has to meet those specifications.
Huh.
And so when I read the guidelines, I'm like, well, I'm glad they have guidelines. I'm like, who's selling these? No, there isn't anyone selling them. They just have them. No, it's got to meet those guidelines. So there had been other people working on creating a tether that somehow meets these guidelines, but they weren't. No one was producing them. So I have now produced them.
Where do you make those?
These are manufactured from a sporting company. These are my designs.
Okay.
So that's how Lending Site has changed.
Okay.
Originally, you could buy these through Perceptual Positions, which is now doing business as Lending Site, and we're selling these in addition to other tethers.
How big is this market?
It's very small. That's why there's no one that really wants to. Who wants to really spend time? Do you know how long it takes to figure out? Okay, how do I make something that meets those specifications?
Are there 10,000 visually impaired runners? Is there 5,000?
Are you like worldwide?
No, in the U.S., let's say.
Actually, there's quite a bit in the U.S.
Yeah.
And I'd have to talk to the NFB, National Federation of the Blind.
Yeah.
It's a small niche.
Sure.
That's the key. It's a small niche, but not every athlete, just like every able-bodied athlete, does not have the desire to become an Olympic athlete or the ability, but they still want to feel athletic achievement within their own means. So this is what if you're going to race at a world game or Paralympic game, this is what's required.
Yeah.
But most people, they're going to be using this.
I forgot what I used with Amelia.
She probably had you use one of her tethers that she had, which it was just a rope.
So I got to be honest, that was scary. Like, I was so intimidated to guide her. And I remember answering your ad, or maybe you put something on Facebook.
I did.
And you needed someone that could run, I forget whatever pace you put, 7 something.
At least 7.
7 miles, which I was fine with that. But man, once we got rolling, I just felt such an amazing amount of responsibility to not only keep up, make sure that I was running her pace, but I kind of screwed up and she almost tripped over a cone because I just it was so interesting to do that. How much do you do working with people to help be good guides? Is that another part of your business?
That is another part of business. Now that's initially what I started doing, was I wanted to train guides, because my techniques of guiding kind of come from myself as an individual, because I have post-traumatic stress disorder. So when I started guiding Luann and I realized that she had talent, I realized that in order to give her the confidence to risk, running fast, because you can fall. You can fall. I mean, we've fallen. They've got to be able to trust you. Okay? That's the biggest mark for a good guide. It's not everyone can guide. Okay? Yeah. Because you have to be in there for the visually impaired athlete. It's not for you guiding. It's not for you.
Sure.
It's not for the just the guide. But you have to be able to work together and communicate.
Right.
And it can be terrifying, and so it has to be a right combination.
Yeah. But at some point, you have to try it and see.
You have to try it and see.
It's not easy. You can't. There's not really it's a really interesting criteria to.
The first thing I tell someone, I said, "Are you okay with touching someone's hand? Are you okay with touching someone's hand? If you're not okay with touch, you're probably not a good guide."
Yeah, and then with COVID, I might be creating some other.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So there's that right now. That's a big problem right now. Is there's not a lot of willingness, and I don't blame people to guide.
Yeah.
During COVID.
Huh.
So.
Okay, so you've really brought this parallel passion of your own life and your own sort of path of success and finding out about yourself and just flourishing through running, and you've applied it towards the visually impaired and helping them flourish and really realize their dreams and so forth. Maybe if you can, it's probably really hard to do, but share one story of one athlete that you feel like you just made or your organization really made leaps and bounds progress and changed the life drastically.
I can tell you that within the last month, I had an athlete, and his name is Estebu, contact me and said how much I changed his life. And he was so glad that I came into his life when I did. His American name is Ethan Johnson, but he's from Ethiopia.
Mm-hmm.
And his true calling is he's a sprinter. I met him while he was a student at CU, and I met Amelia then also. And he was wanting to have an opportunity to do something because he was blind, and he had been blinded from a kidnapping from when he was in Ethiopia. And I said, I think you can do this. Well, long story short, Ethan's run the Cherry Creek State many times, but I took him to a track meet in California with some other athletes, and it was for Paralympic qualifications. And I had, Ethan, I know you're really a sprinter. I'm going to find you the best guides that I can from the LA area to give you the best possible shot for making a qualifying time for the standards, for Paralympic standards, for the 200 and the 400. 200 and the 400. He had never had spikes on before.
Oh.
Okay, and I would have to look up the time that he he got. But I got 2 runners from a professional track team in Los Angeles who said they would guide him, and they did. They did a fantastic job. And he ran times. He ran. I have to pull up his times, but I want to say, like 52-second 400 time, which is pretty good.
That's pretty good
for never running.
Yeah.
With tracks on a track.
Yeah.
Because I had the right guides.
Yeah, that's fast.
And I said, you have the. I told Ethan, I said, you have the ability to be on the USA team. Because I knew who the other runners were.
Yeah.
And the times.
Is he hoping to get to Japan?
No, his life has taken a different path now. He's now married with children. But he when he called me, he said that you gave me hope and inspired me when nobody else had or thought I could do anything. And he said, you have made so much a difference in my life. And I was really, it kind of brought me to tears. Because I said, well, you have talent. I told him that. I said, I truly believe you could have made the team. I said, nobody could have done what you did, not ever putting on a pair of track spikes and getting out there and running those times.
Yeah. I think I met him.
He's ran Cherry Creek Sneak.
I was amazed by him. As a matter of fact, I know him. I'm sure I did. He was blinded.
He was blinded.
Like it was very similar to the movie Slumdog Millionaire.
Exactly.
Yeah, and he told me the story. He's a good-looking guy.
He's a great guy.
And he's muscular, and he just looks like a super athlete.
He's a super athlete.
And he was so upbeat.
Yeah.
And he told me some other things about his life that was very difficult. And just his landing in Colorado was a miracle.
Yeah.
That he even got here.
Yeah.
And we don't need to go into all that, but that's really interesting how he's reached out to you just recently. Just recently,
and I told him, I said, because I had known that I was selected earlier last year, but I didn't tell anyone.
Okay.
Because actually COVID hit like within 3 days after me being notified that I had been selected. So I didn't tell anyone because now we're dealing with the pandemic.
Sure.
But when Ethan was on the phone, I said, well, I'll tell you, I was selected to be in the Hall of Fame, Ethan. And I said, I would love if you could be there. And he said, it definitely will be there.
Oh, that's awesome. Where does he live?
He's in Denver.
Okay. Oh, that's really, really cool. So will he do your induction speech or something?
Well, I have someone else that I know who's going to do it.
Okay.
I will offer Ethan if he would like to say a few words.
That's great. Huh. So maybe we'll just kind of start to conclude here. We could talk all day. It's really interesting. But how would you describe I'm really proud of you. And I mean that from the fact that it's really neat that a fellow farmer, if you will, and what you've done with your life that you had no idea was going to be when you were in high school. And here you've taken a whole other direction of your life and really made a success out of it. What are you most proud of?
I am so proud of what I've been able to do with visual impairment for athletes and being able to be a spokesperson and actually to be a person that has helped developing the sport. I am most proud that I've been able to give opportunities to as many people that I can. And to see what they've done with their, newfound opportunities. I mean, it was like Luann, and then Amelia, Jason Romero, Michael Stone. I met, Jessica Beecham. The runners that I have met have gone on to do, or that I've trained, amazing things. I mean, Luann ran Pikes Peak. She was the first blind person to run Pikes Peak. Mm. And she finished second in her age group.
Yeah.
And she's blind. I had my friend Janie Day guide her.
Yeah.
Amelia is the fastest American marathon and 5K. Jessica Beecham went on to run the Pikes Peak Marathon, the full one. Jason Romero ran across America.
Right.
Ethan went, Ethan was truly a phenomenal. There are just so many that.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's amazing.
I had a blind athlete throw javelin.
Okay.
I don't know if you've thrown a javelin.
I've never thrown a javelin.
Okay.
I bet it's not easy.
Yeah, I was able to make that happen.
Wow. Okay, so let's take a little deep dive here on something. We both went to the same high school. We walked the halls of those high schools. We see pictures of a Dave Logan, or of some great athlete, a Danny Reese or Sam Reese, or the all-conference picture on the walls by the gymnasium. If you didn't play sports in high school, you didn't get that recognition, right? And here you are, a very successful athlete, but also somebody that aspires others. What would you tell my daughter's 17, okay, and she does play some sports, but what about that kid that feels maybe awkward in high school, or doesn't go out for teams, who doesn't get the recognition, but has that deeper part of them that could be this or could be that? What would you tell that kid?
If you have a desire to do it, to go out and try and to do it, and look for opportunities. And I guess that's one thing that I tell the athletes I work with. I said, you may only get this opportunity once. Take it. If you take it, it's going to lead you to a path. If you don't take it, you're going to go on to another path. Some things only come to you around once, and you have to be willing to say, I'm going to take it. It's funny because I wasn't an athlete in high school, and all the people that you mentioned, I really can't even imagine, that I'm actually going to be recognized in the same fashion as those other people. I just want to say to those people that are not secure or don't feel confident in themselves, is that there is always another possibility than what you have, if you can look for it and take it. And if you have it in your heart to do something, you have to follow your heart and do it to the best that you can. No one reaches perfection. They reach excellence. And excellence comes through a lot of things. It comes through repetition. It comes from staying motivated. It has a plan. You make sacrifices. That there's always the opportunity. Don't let people define what you can and cannot do, because that's the one thing that holds most people back. As they say, oh, well, you're blind, or you're this, you don't look like, you don't have the athletic body.
Right.
And so you have these notions in your head that, oh, I can't do this. I'm going to tell you, yes, you can. If you want to try it, do it. And you may fall the first time. If you still have that in you to get up and try it again, keep on doing it.
Keep on doing it. I like that. You can't be perfect, but you can still be excellent.
Exactly. I mean, all my girlfriends have made the They made the Olympic trials. I didn't. I didn't make an Olympic trial qualifying time. It doesn't mean that I didn't strive for excellence.
Right.
It doesn't mean that I'm a lesser person because I didn't make the Olympic trials. We still share this love of sport and the passion. I mean, and you have to really love it to do this.
Right.
And I do.
Well, thanks for spending some time with me and 303 and sharing your story. And I hope we have a chance to maybe talk to you after your induction and how that went. And maybe we can be there to cover it. I don't know with COVID and who knows what's going to happen. I have some ties to the Denver Athletic Club, so I used to work there. I can probably sneak in some back doorway somewhere. But thanks so much. And I would really love to see your picture in the hallways at Wheat Ridge, right?
That would be amazing. It kind of brings tears to my eyes because I can't really imagine that.
Yeah.
Because I wasn't known as an athlete. I wasn't not an athlete in high school. I worked.
Yeah.
But if time is just that moment in time. Things can always change. That's it. That's the other thing I would like to tell people is that just because you're in this space right now doesn't mean you can't not change. You always have the possibility of change.
Right. Well, look at Ethan. Right.
Yeah, I mean, I'm in the Hall of Fame, and I'm really honored.
Yeah.
I'm really honored.
Well, we're honored to have a chance to talk to you about it, and congratulations.
Thanks, Bill.
And we'll stay in touch.
Okay, thank you.
Awesome.